So my name is Jeffrey Berry. I am CEO of Tennessee Environmental Council. We will go ahead and get started with our webinar today. An exciting webinar. I'm really excited about this to learn what LightWave Solar has to share about the state-of-the-art solar opportunities here in Tennessee. And Tennessee Environmental Council's mission is to help people and communities improve our environment. And we have a vision which includes thriving habitats, a circular economy, and climate balance in Tennessee. And pretty much all of those are supported by what solar energy and tapping that unlimited, virtually unlimited power source from the sun can benefit as it benefits our society and our environment and our economy. So some really good information we have here that Chris is going to share with us. And Chris Kasaja is the president and CEO of LightWave Solar, which is a Tennessee-based company, has been operating for 15 years, going on 16. And Chris is also serving on the board of the Amicus Solar Cooperative and is president of the Tennessee Solar Energy Industries Association, has many years of experience in engineering and sales and operating corporations. And is a mechanical engineer by training. So we're honored to have you here with us today, Chris, and look forward to hearing about how we can all get involved and what is the future and the present of solar energy in Tennessee. So, and by the way, a little bit of housekeeping real quick before we roll into the presentation is if you have any questions, we will answer questions at the end. You can type those questions anytime in the Q&A feature in your Zoom, and we will make sure to get to those after Chris does his presentation. So, all right, Chris, the floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing your information.
No, perfect. No, I really appreciate the opportunity, but really appreciate everything you guys do here in Tennessee and helping move the overall mission of sustainability and environmental awareness. So really appreciate it, have always been big supporters. And again, I just happy with the opportunity to speak with everyone here and kind of give everyone a little bit of background on where solar is in the valley here. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of presentation. And as Jeff said, we've got a lot of content here, and generally we'll answer a lot of the questions throughout the presentation. So please feel free to put them in that Q&A, but there will be time at the end to answer questions or go through things or just musings you may have. So again, my name is Chris Kasaja. The distinct pleasure and honor of kind of providing leadership to the LightWave team here, but also get to try to work with our customers on meeting their needs here in the Valley. So just a little bit about us to start. We are a turnkey solar provider. We do everything from residential systems, like you see on the top, to full-fledged utility, commercial, industrial carports, or arrays in the field. So we see a lot of the transition coming, and it's exciting because I tell people all the time that, oh, it's not in the next 5 years. It's really in the next 3 or 4 years that you're going to see some dramatic changes with solar storage and electric vehicles and how those all work together. And I'll kind of lay all that out for you. But again, we've seen a lot of it. We've been around since 2006, and a lot of our team has, been instrumental in the change and the evolution as really the whole of society, and even in the Valley here, we're really starting to adopt and endorse solar as kind of that fuel of choice and energy of choice. So we've got we eclipsed 1,000 installations this year as well. So again, it's given us a lot of background on how things work, how some things don't work, but the experience to know which is which and how we move things forward. So that's enough about us trying to move now into, okay, what's the overall picture? And the thing I highlight for people, and we have a problem with all the time, is that there's so much solar out, and even in downtown Nashville, in our backyards in Nashville, Knoxville, Memphis, but you can't see it because it's on the roofs. But when you look from the sky, obviously, you see a lot of what's there. So, Metro Nashville has huge sustainability initiatives. So almost all of the new buildings they build, are going for LEED Gold or better in what they're trying to do. And a lot of times that's also involving solar in it. So that's the Metro Nashville Police Department that we did last year or maybe the year before. But again, you know, trying to integrate that into the designs, the new buildings up front. But then we've got, you know, examples like in the middle there where we've got existing customers' buildings that are not only trying to add more solar because it's part of who they are and part of their brand, but they add a carport and EV chargers out there as well. Again, this is something that helps promote their brand awareness, is good for the employees, and now they've got the electric vehicle charging. That's the Design Works or the Pattywax site there on Sitco Drive. And then you've got manufacturers coming to the Valley that are saying, hey, we're global manufacturers. We see the whole carbon picture. It's important to us. And as we build our new facilities, we want to integrate solar into it, not only for, the picture on the right is Nokian Tire down in Dayton, but not only for the solar energy and what's there and shaded parking for our employees, but now all that shaded parking also offsets the heat that was going to be absorbed by asphalt as well. So you get all these benefits here that maybe on the surface you don't realize at first, but when you start to compound those and you look at how solar is really moved down the cost curve, it's gotten pretty exciting. And it's like everything, when you start the technology adoption, you see more happen on the residential scale first, then as it rolls into the more utility scale. And that's what we're really going to focus on more today is how can you as an individual enjoy solar energy here in the Valley. So this is the burning platform, and it's the place I start. And I've been using this slide since I think early this year, and it's always been fascinating to me to put this slide together because it really just keeps playing into itself. Every time I think, oh, this slide's going to be old, it's like, oh no, it's relevant. It is right there. And one of the big things, the first bullet point is that we as society and you as consumers of energy are using less energy. You know, we look at the lighting, everything around us, the high efficiency air conditioning, things like that are really starting to conserve more energy. So, you know, you look at the rate case where we've got all of this development and all this growth in the Nashville community, yet the load is fairly stable. It hasn't really grown. You think, oh, it'd be up through the roof. No, not really. It's because all the energy conservation that's happening, and you know how we as consumers are starting to be more mindful of how we use energy, when we use it, and also you know how we use technology to save energy. At the same time, the grid is getting older. So, you know, when you look at the local power companies and the G&Ts, you know, the TVA and whatnot, they're having this infrastructure that they have to keep up. So we have reliable power. At the same time, you're using less power. So it kind of pushes them from both sides in that they're trying to grow their infrastructure. At the same time, they're selling less kilowatt hours per unit or per person. So it creates a conundrum of there's more grid to upkeep, and it is getting older in a lot of places, and it creates just some conflict there as they try to meet the needs of society, of us, the consumers, while we at the same time are using less energy. Residuals, you know, we know about the coal ash and what's there, a growing concern and what happened there. We as as a more global society are starting to look at the residuals, including carbon, and starting to put more of a price on them. So you've seen in the news a lot more discussion around carbon and not if, but when we're going to start really calculating how much carbon intensity there is as we use energy in there. So all of those are kind of going into that concern. And then you lump on top of it the cybersecurity. And I can't tell you how many new credit cards I've had in the last 5 years. The credit card company anymore, they just start sending me new cards because it's like, oh, I've been hacked. Oh, well, here's my new card. Just because all of society, like us today on this webinar, are moving online. And as we move online and have more opportunities to transact and do business online, that also opens up opportunities for more criminals to take advantage of that as well. So you couple that now with, we know that there's been a lot of hacking, you know, where it comes from, who knows, but it's there and we've seen it, you know, as recently as Colonial Pipeline, maybe others, that they're starting to get into not just our credit card systems, but our more critical infrastructure systems. So you take, these bullet points on the top of, okay, I've got this grid I'm trying to upkeep, and now I've got these guys trying to hack into the system too. How do we deal with all of that? And again, still have reliable energy and power delivered to us every day. So there is a concept out there that says, well, what if we look at the grid of microgrids? Instead of having this huge central generation that's sending power out everywhere, what if I decentralize that so I have more things throughout the system? That way, if one piece of the system is affected, it doesn't affect the rest of it. And it's where a lot of things are starting to go. And what we talk about is really, and what I'm going to relay to you here today is that you're going to have your own microgrid if you go to solar and storage. You're going to be that independent node that can function. So kind of a neat concept. But the last bullet point is every day these are published, and this is the fun part of this presentation. Is I pulled all of these articles just in the last few hours ago to put them in here, but it's easy. It takes like 3 minutes, and there's always something on these topics going on, be it electric vehicles, looking at climate-friendly 401k investments, what the charging is going to do for electric vehicles. Because again, think about that. All of a sudden, you're using less power. Well, we go to electric vehicles. Now we're going to be adding a lot more demand. That should be a good thing, right? It is, except that everyone's going to plug their electric vehicle in at 5 o'clock when they get home from work. So you're going to put this tremendous load right at that peak part of the summer. So that creates its own problems in and of itself. And then the DOE, the bottom right, just had the article on cyber threats that just went out here in the last 24 hours as well. So it's the constant dialogue, and kind of highlights for us, like, well, what do we do? How do we prepare ourselves for kind of what this next thing looks like, while we're also worrying about carbon intensity? And for those that say, well, this is great, this is a global thing, I've got my handy list here of, in the last 18 months, this is what we've experienced just in Nashville. So I don't know if you remember, because COVID time is weird. It's like this transcends everything. But we had the tornado back beginning last year, and then not too much longer, we had the derecho in downtown Nashville. At the same time, we were running out of names for hurricanes out in the Gulf and the Atlantic. Obviously, we had a pandemic in the middle of that. We had the Nashville bombing on Christmas Day. There was the national cyber breach, so the SolarWinds breach. Then we had an ice storm in Nashville that knocked out power. A flood in Nashville that was, wasn't the same, but, made everyone remember the big flood of 2010. Then we had the Colonial Pipeline. We saw ERCOT outages in Texas, and now we're seeing outages in Texas and California, while we have aging infrastructure that we saw, unfortunately, in Florida too. So again, I'm not a doomsdayer, but just from the reality of how everything is coming together, it's what we're living and where we're at. So, it's great, Chris. You've scared me. Now what do I do? How do we look at this differently? So again, think about that grid of microgrids concept. So in the valley, in the Tennessee Valley, so the TVA region, these are kind of the progression of options we have to enjoy solar as individuals. So for solar only, we no longer have what's called net metering or feed-in tariffs. This is what you hear about a lot in other regions. We used to have it here a few years ago, but we no longer do. So there's no set program for buyback or utility using or paying you for your solar. So instead, what we're doing is trying to offset real-time demand. So if I'm using 3 kilowatts right now, and I'm generating 3 kilowatts right now, I can offset that. But if I use 3 kilowatts at midnight and I generate 3 kilowatts at noon, I don't have a way to net that out. And that's what's considered net metering. So we don't have that here. So what do we do with that? Well, if we can line up those loads and say that, well, I'm using it right when I'm generating it, that's what's called behind the meter. And we give you that ability to install solar and use it real time there, but anything you don't use gets exported back to the grid. So the next concept is, well, maybe I can change my demand. Maybe I can use more energy during the solar window, so I can use more of that real-time energy. And that's where we talk about peak shaving, time of use, interruptible rates, or actually just using energy at different times. But again, what we're going to focus on is more of this energy storage and using it for backup, or maybe we'll just take that energy storage concept and move into the microgrid. And we get this all the time of, well, I want to be off grid. That's great. I would love to be off grid too, but it comes at quite an expense. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But the bigger concept is the distributed generation. Again, that's that grid of microgrids. And the analogy we give is that old school cell phone on the bottom. It's kind of, if you look at the developing world, did they put in landline phone lines as they're developing, or did they skip right to the mobile technology where they didn't have to build the infrastructure? Well, they skipped it. So you look at the same thing and saying, well, are they going in, putting in this huge infrastructure? Or are they starting to build these microgrids? And it's like, well, they're building the microgrids. So that's where the whole transition that we're working and we're looking at, not only nationally, but globally is coming. And again, I want to say that everyone's thinking 5 and 10 year terms, but it's coming before that. It really is accelerating at a precipitous pace. So I'm going to use the term grid independence. And this is all about now saying that we're not just talking about solar carbon-free energy. We're looking at solar plus storage and those concepts together. So we're taking solar and we're adding batteries to it to get that one system there. So I can fill up the batteries and use those batteries not only when it's sunny out, but I can use those batteries into the night or maybe even through the night. So it's the term of grid independent. So with the people that are saying, hey, I'd love to be off grid, just all solar energy and solar and batteries, and that's great. Again, I'm one of those people that think in those terms, love that. However, when we do that, you have to size the system that you're putting in for that worst week of the year. So 95% of the time, your system is way oversized, but it's that one gray week in the year when you're off grid that your entire system has to be designed around. So if I'm designing around that 1 week of the year, 95% of the time it's oversized, I'm paying about double what it would be for equipment versus saying, hey, what if I have the equipment that is more the average case and I just use it as backup or use the grid as backup. So it changes the concept to say we have relatively reliable power here. Let's use the grid as our backup and let's use our solar and storage as kind of our prime energy source. And when run out of solar or the batteries are depleted, I just go over to grid. But in an outage, I've got that infrastructure there and I can manage that. And that's what we're talking about today. So you have all the fuel available with the solar. And if you run out of batteries, the sun's going to come back out the next day. You can charge. Relatively low maintenance. You see the Tesla Powerwalls on the wall there. There's no maintenance required on those. They're self-standing units. You're using it every day. So if there's a problem in an air code, you see it versus, if you have a generator or something, it's like, whoa, I forgot to change the oil on it, or there's something wrong, or it faulted a couple months ago, I didn't realize it. Well, if you're using it every day, you see those air codes real time, so you can address it before it becomes an issue in an outage. But ultimately, it gives you the tools to control your energy future, because not only will you be controlling how you get your energy, but you're going to be controlling how you use your energy. I'll go into that as well. So if you look at your use case, and we're in the summertime, so this is the load profile of an average day in the summer for one of our customers. So you kind of see the peaks and the valleys, and you see kind of the air conditioning coming on and off that makes these peaks. It's like, well, that's pretty normal what we got. But if I overlay what a solar window looks like, it's kind of like, well, it's great. I'm using a lot of energy when the sun is out. However, I've got these gaps here where I'm making a lot more solar power than what I'm using. And then on the other side, I've got these gaps where I'm using a lot more than I'm generating. So it kind of works, but if I look at all that area, I'm exporting a lot of power to the grid and I'm not really getting anything for it. And I'm not able to use it at that time. Well, if I had storage, this is now on those gaps, I'm starting to charge the battery. So this is state of charge of the battery, this blue line at the bottom. So on all these gaps, I'm starting to charge the battery. And then at the other side, when the sun's going down, I'm discharging the battery so I can make use of all that throughout the day. So this is what we're describing as a solar plus storage system. And it's working behind the meter, so to speak, but it's working to offset your usage when you're using it every day. So will it show up as a credit on your bill? No. But what it'll look like is you did some massive energy efficiency upgrade. So this is a example bill from one of customers that said last year, before they had the solar and storage system, they consumed almost 2,300 kilowatt hours of energy. But this year, now that they've installed their solar plus storage system, they only use 619. It's like, did they use that much less? No, but they offset that much using their system there. So that's how it'll show up as savings there. So again, you're using the grid, you know, once the batteries are depleted, all of the charge going into the battery is clean solar energy. So you get the renewable, the carbon-free energy from that. And now I'm starting to see when I'm using and how I'm using energy. So, you know, we talked a little bit about, and I'll hit this in a minute, the new kind of addiction is these apps that's like, wow, where's all this energy going? I see real time, I'm using it, what's going on? Well, it just becomes part of the conversation, and it's good because it makes us all think about you know, that kilowatt hour we're using. And again, a kilowatt hour saved is just as good as a kilowatt hour generated, and even more so. And if we look at recycling, reducing is the first thing that we want to focus on. So hyper complicated slide. So I want to just take a minute and talk about partial home backup or whole home backup. So we're going to create solar energy during the day. We're going to do solar and storage. So we've got a battery backup, but there's a concept called partial home backup and whole home backup that I need to interlace here, because you as consumers, when you call LightWave or you call, you know, any other solar provider, it's going to be a question of, well, what do you want to back up? Or can we back up the whole home, or is it just a partial home backup? And this is physically what it'll look like in between. But what I want to focus on is really the beginning and the end. So, because you're going to get a lot of crazy diagrams about, oh gosh, this is complicated, I don't know how it works, what's going on. But in the simplest term, during the day, normal times, when the grid's there, everything's good, when you're generating solar power and you've got your storage system, it's offsetting what you're using regardless of whether it's a backed up panel or not. General, it depends how the system is installed, but most systems out there can be installed. So again, while the grid is connected, you're offsetting whatever energy you're using at the meter. However, in an outage, in a partial home backup system, you're only backing up a portion of the house versus a whole home backup, you're backing up the whole house. So a critical concept here, because if you're only partial home backup, there's only a certain amount of loads that you have that are backed up. So if there's something in this other load panel that you wanted, you won't have energy available for that in that system. And that's fine. You know that up front, which loads are going to be backed up and which are not going to be backed up. But it's a decision you have to make up front. Versus the whole home backup, you have the whole home backed up. And I was like, well, that's great, that's good. However, you also have to be careful, because it's really easy to blow through all your storage. If you're making Thanksgiving dinner, you got multiple ovens going and air conditioning going, kids have the doors open, stuff like that. You know, it's possible to use more of it because you haven't limited the larger loads. So pluses and minuses to both, but again, largely what you're looking for is what makes the most sense for you. What do you want to have in an outage, and are you able to manage loads in this outage scenario, especially if you're a whole home backup. So again, don't get as concerned about the complications in the middle, but really just look at the beginning and the end of the process of you're trying to offset everything you use in the normal day when you're generating solar, and then in a backup, what that looks like, whether it's a whole home or partial backup. So there is on our website, if you are interested, it's about a 5-minute video to see a demo where one of our customers was gracious enough to allow us to go and do an outage scenario at their house, and you can see how it shows up on the app there to kind of see how that works. I won't go through it here, but it's there if you wanted to see that, and you just go to the URL at the bottom. So the other piece here is that, you know, talked a lot about what the system is, how it works, what it looks like, but also need to kind of highlight that these are complicated systems. You know, back to all the way to the beginning, we're really installing a microgrid. you can go, if you disconnect from the utility, you can go days, hours, weeks, months, even if you judiciously manage your loads during that outage. So it really creates, again, this grid independence that you have, to manage that, work through that. However, it's a lot of system to put in there at the front to make sure it all works seamlessly together. So it's more than just putting solar panels and batteries in. We've got all the engineering labor that goes into it, the monitoring and the information technology or IT, the network integration there to be sure that you have access to apps, all the permits, not only with the locale, but with the utility, being sure that everything is installed safely, and all the materials you can see, just, all the conduit, the panels and everything that goes into this. Sales tax will be applicable to these as well. Soft starts potentially on HVAC equipment, different mounting pads, stacking kits, depending on where batteries are going and how things are going in. And then if you've got some aesthetic upgrades or really want it to look like this or want it over here, but that means we have to run stuff longer. All stuff that a good installer will work through with you, and make sure that you understand what they can do and they understand what you want, so you can work together and build a system that makes sense for you. But all things that need to be considered, again, when you see pricing, it's not just the price of solar panels and the price of batteries. There's a lot of stuff that goes into one of these installations. And I mentioned kind of aesthetic upgrades. Well, there's a lot of options now with panels. So, when we're looking now, years ago, we used to say, well, it's got to be a south-facing panel because the panels are so expensive. We want to be sure they get every piece of sunlight they can. Well, panels aren't the most expensive portion of the system anymore. So more often than not, we see benefits of saying, hey, maybe I've got an east, west, and a south array. That way, not only am I getting that solar curve that we saw during the day, if I've got east-west, I actually broaden that curve a little bit. And if I broaden that curve, that's that much less storage I need, because I'm covering more of that load real time. Or for the days where it's cloudy in the morning and sunny in the afternoon, I have opportunity to grab more sun at different times of the day. So something we see a lot more of is adding different planes or faces or different azimuths to arrays to, again, extend that window. Or maybe, the roof just doesn't work, or I've got this big field out back, just go with a ground mount system. This puts the panels at the optimum tilt, at the optimum azimuth to get the most energy out of them, and then keeps them close to the house, but not necessarily on the roof if the roof isn't necessarily suitable. Or the last one you think about is, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to put these solar panels up, why don't I make it a feature? So this is a pergola, and you can see the solar panels here are actually form the roof of that pergola, and these are a very nice but architectural type solar panel where they're clear glass with the individual cells that you can see. But more the concept here is, well, it doesn't have to just be a solar panel on the roof. Maybe it can be a feature, it can integrate it more into another upgrade that I'm looking at. But all things, again, to consider that again, find an installer that will work with you and talk you through the options here to be sure that you're getting what it is you want, because this is all 25, 30-year plus equipment. So getting it right and making sure that it's what you want is important. So, but saying that, we do have a 26% federal tax credit. So you can take basically the invoice that you would get from an installer like us, you can take 26% off of that as a federal credit. Now you have to have that tax liability. It is a credit, not a grant, not a direct payment. However, if you do have that tax liability, you can look at what we say from a solar and storage perspective and apply that credit to it. It does drop to 22% 2023. There are some rumblings that may change here in the package, but more likely they're going to expand more on the storage side of the equation there and do a few different things, the infrastructure bill that's kind of evolving. But what we have is the 26% tax credit that's pretty reliable and expected to get extended past 2023. But right now, as we stand today, it drops to 22% in 2023. So That's great. You've been talking for 15, 20 minutes now, but what's it cost? Well, these are big, broad ranges. And again, it all depends on all those factors I talked about. But the option on the left hand of the screen is to do solar only. But again, we can only size that solar if we're trying to fit beneath your usage curve. So we're not exporting a bunch. Since we don't have any buyback programs, we're again, just trying to size for that. So solar only is going to be in the 10 to 20 range, $10 to $20,000 range, just looking at that smaller system that fits in that window. Again, I was talking about off-grid being twice expensive. Well, you can see the range for off-grid. And it's like all of this stuff it all depends. It depends what you want, what you're trying to achieve, and what types of equipment's being used. But in general, the off-grid is, double what you're looking at for what we term in the middle is grid independent. And this is the best of both worlds of trying to say, okay, let's give you the tools and a system that fits the middle of the usage curve and let you kind of manage that and have that there. So the grid is your backup because you have a grid independent system. And then again, you can see what happens after the tax credits on that with the system. So again, not an insignificant investment. That's why, really important that people, do their research, do their homework, talk to multiple installers in there and understand what's getting installed, because this is not only a big investment, but it's a longer term investment on what you're going to have at your home. So going to that other side of it, and I highlight this all the time, this comment of your habits will change. It's like the mile per gallon meter, especially on the Priuses and the first hybrids that coming out, made it very, very bold what your MPG was on the car. And what was interesting was the cars are absolutely more efficient, have the hybrid technology, but just having that gauge and seeing what your real time or your average miles per gallon is changes your driving habits. So you start looking at it and it's like, oh, I can see if I can get up to 50 today or whatever. You start moving towards that direction. Well, same thing happens at your home. When you start looking at when you're using and how you're using electricity, your habits are going to change. And that's what these tools, as you can see in the picture, are going to give you is you're going to be able to see what's being generated, what's being used. And wow, this really, the HVAC kicked on. We need to turn that down. That's something we need to look at. And the interesting thing, and y'all highlighted a couple times here, but there will also be instances where your solar is still generating, your batteries are full, and you're starting to export power to the grid. And that's where we tell our customers, it's like, well, use it. You're just being given this energy away to the grid for free. Why don't you use it? Plug in an EV, or if you're a little uncomfortable or it's a little humid, pump the thermostat down. At that point, it's incrementally free energy because you aren't going to use it otherwise. So again, it's not only using less at times when you aren't generating as much, but there's the concept of you could actually use some more energy at other times as you manage your loads, or maybe run the air conditioner a little bit harder during the middle of the day so it doesn't run as hard in the evening. Things like that you'll play with. But again, you'll have all the tools to move through that. So that's the whole concept of trying to match up these loads with when you're generating the power. So living with solar and storage during an outage. Now this is the difference. So that's during the day where you have the grid there. However, when you're in an outage scenario, you need to be mindful of what you're using. It is absolutely possible that you can blow through your solar and batteries. Again, if you're making Thanksgiving dinner during an outage, okay, that's great. Everyone's here. We need to eat. However, I need to be sure that I've got enough, fuel in the tank, so to speak, of your battery to make it through. So the energy intensive appliances, and if you think about thermal devices, so anything with a heating element in it is going to use a lot more energy. That's where you get to your water heater, your washer, dryers, dishwashers, car chargers, ovens, things of that nature are more energy intense. But the main stuff to keep you going, especially I always highlight the coffee maker is number one on my list always as far as critical load. It is relatively low usage. So, and again, you can manage that. You'll have the tools to be able to figure out which is which and how to make it through that outage. So again, you just have the mindful energy usage. You're keeping an eye on the app. You've got everything at your fingertips to know what your state of charge is, how much you have, whether you need to adjust your thermostats up or down. And again, just start to manage both sides of that equation. So all stuff that people get more used to. And again, you'll already be kind of used to this because you'll be watching this on normal days and changing a lot of your habits. So if when an outage comes, it'll be, more second nature for you on how to manage that. So that's the system itself. So that's everything in a nutshell on what we're talking about, again, because we don't have net metering. So we're doing solar and storage, giving you the opportunity not just to have clean, renewable, carbon-free energy, but having storage so you can use that energy throughout the day and night. Well, as I highlighted, it's a complicated process, and there's a lot that goes into figuring out what is the right system for you. And it just happens. That is just the reality of what we have. But trying to figure out how best to optimize that is really what we're looking for. So in the sales process, then you're going to look at, okay, we've got solar arrays installed. We like others use drone imagery, and what's neat now is that we'll actually fly your house with a drone, and this is a 3D model of the house. This isn't even a real house. This is the 3D model we created from the drone imagery. So we could lay different panels on different faces to not only show you how it works, but then on the bottom we get you, a view of what times of the year you're going to be generating how much. So you can see this, is only generating about 76% in the winter months because of the shading from some of the trees it has around it, which is fine. That's good, but it's something you need to be mindful of, because if this number gets down to like 30 or 40, you need to really think about, okay, does it make sense to install solar on this face? So there are other things I can do. So it's important to get those detailed proposals there and have someone that's done the full survey here of not only what the system is going to look on your house, but how you use energy and how to optimize those two. And again, it's more art than science. It will never be identical. The term of you're going to eliminate your electric bill, probably not. Actually, I'll just say not, because there's times of the year where you can't balance out those two because of the different things that we've talked about. But what you can do is work in optimizing the reduction in your energy bill. But all of this is tools and discussion that needs to happen on the front end. So you understand not only what you're getting, but if what you're getting meets the needs and goals of what you're trying to achieve. So a lot of times we encounter houses that have either these vent pipes or chimneys or other things that all can be accommodated, but all figure into the overall plan too, of not only making sure that we can install what's there to your satisfaction, but making sure that we've taken it account of all this stuff to meet code and to take any shading impacts, things like that, into account. Long conduit runs, things like that, are important to kind of isolate this. Well, I've got all the solar here, but it needs to go all the way to the other side of the house, or I've got a barn that's like 300 yards out. It's like, that's probably too far to economically run the electricity. But again, good installer can go through all those options with you again to optimize system, figure out what makes sense. But the big thing down here is that not all homes are suitable for solar. There's a number of homes that are not. So if you live in the middle of the woods, if you can't see your roof from Google Earth, probably not a good candidate for solar on your roof. But that's maybe where you look at, can I do something in a field, or is there some other portion where I could do a ground mount or something else to try to optimize it? Or is there's one piece of the yard where I could put a pergola up or something like that, if that makes sense, where I can have a feature and solar. Or ultimately, maybe it just doesn't work right. And that's okay too. There are other options with community solar with some of our local power companies where you can buy offsite solar, things like that. but all part of the conversation. And just, the whole, impetus today was just really to educate you so you have more idea of what types of questions need to be asked and what are the opportunities that are out there. So the other thing that we always tell people is, hey, new construction, really crazy, simple, and fairly cheap to integrate the key components for solar upfront. Whether you're deciding to go solar or not, that's maybe a decision later on, but it's really easy to run some key conduits, or really easy to lay out the electrical panels in a certain way in new construction that, after the fact, again, if we go to that partial home backup, it can be crazy difficult to try to say that, well, I want the load on this side of the house and the load of this other side of the house at the same time. And it's like rewiring the whole house to get both of those into a partial backup panel. So just something to think about on the front end with new construction. It's kind of like, well, I do have a 400 or 600 amp service. I don't need to back it all up in an outage, but I at least want these 20 loads in this panel and that panel to be backed up. Things like that, or even the orientation of the house of just the roofs, where vents are, things that can be accommodated pretty easy on the front end. And there are some solar ready type guides out there that you can get, or again, call an installer and talk it through with them. It's like, hey, I'm going to build a house. What should I be thinking about? So again, solar and storage. I think I've beat the concept here of giving you the tools to manage your energy future, being grid independent. So you're using the grid as your backup power. There is the adage that, hey, maybe you don't have to do it all in one fell swoop. Maybe let's start here, live with it for a year, and then expand. Absolutely possible, but much easier to do if you plan on that up front. But ultimately, this is the mantra, is that you can be self-reliant, all while using clean, renewable energy. You can do both. So talk for my allotted time here, but going to open it up for questions now if anyone has any. But again, just really appreciate the opportunity, and please don't hesitate to either type questions in, or Jeff, I don't know if we're going to open it up. Either way,
Yeah.
happy to answer whatever questions are there.
Yeah, we are. We have some questions, and it's a really informative and eye-opening presentation, and exciting. So thank you for the glimmer of hope here in becoming more reliant on solar energy in our lives. And so what is your view on the big picture? Like, if you look at the total energy produced to support our economy right now, as much as solar and wind are so beneficial, they're still just a tiny piece of that slice of the pie. So what's your vision for the future? How much of our energy future can be provided by solar energy?
It's a great question, and I will say the first answer is, of course, it depends, and then the second answer is a lot. And the transition here is really, really exciting, because solar now, with its cost, especially at utility scale, is the lowest cost energy alternative. Now, with the caveat of, yes, I'm generating solar during the solar window, but storage is that next thing that's coming right behind solar that really opens up the window for that. So it really is the enabler to say that, okay, now I can really use more of the solar energy at more times of the day, more times of the night, and use it when it's needed most. So you're already seeing a large transition. And I think the carbon neutrality, or hey, can we reduce carbon? I think we're going to see most utilities by mid 2030s really, really focus on getting to carbon neutral. Now, there's a difference between renewable and carbon neutral when you're talking about nuke being carbon neutral but not necessarily renewable. But there's also the play to say that, well, it just depends on these cost curves, and as they come down on storage, maybe the solar and storage overtakes that. 5-10 years ago, man, solar was just really expensive, and yes, the cost curve's coming down, it's not going to make it there. Storage wasn't even really thought about yet, and now it's like every conversation, the pricing is different, and or the capabilities are different. So we're seeing a lot more of that transition happen faster. And I'll say it's not 5 years out. We're seeing 3 to 4 years out, significant changes in the economy as the momentum build. So tough to put a number on it, but I am way beyond bullish on solar and storage being the energy choice and provider of the future.
So that sort of segues into our next question. Like some people are asking that how long before these batteries, because we know batteries are going to degrade over time, how long before they need to be replaced? And what is the projected lifetime of the batteries and the replacement cost?
Mm-hmm. So great question. And yes, it's out there. The but is that the transition to electric vehicles is just starting to gain momentum. And yes, we see a lot of Teslas, especially out there, but in the next 2 years, again, not 3, not 5 years, but next 2 years, you're going to see VW, GM, Ford, all the big auto manufacturers are going to have their electric fleets out too. And with that is more newer, reliable battery technology, not only up front, but figuring out what to do at end of life with replacements and how that works with recycling, with upgrading, things of that nature. So most of the battery technology that we install today has a 10-year warranty on it, and will be at 70+% of its initial capacity at that range. But again, at that point, it's still working. It's still 70% of its capacity. It's just a matter of what that curve looks like longer term, and how we've used it along the way. But again, bullish on the future is once we've installed all of that infrastructure and once we put everything else in, it's easier to address just the batteries 10 or 15 years or even 20 years down the road if needed. And the technology available then is going to be generations better at that point. But they're really at a sweet spot even just right now, what we're seeing, what we're installing, and just what's available in the industry. Again, largely driven by not just what's demanded for solar and storage, but what the electric vehicle manufacturing is demanding.
Thank you for that. And there's so many questions coming through here. So let's see, can an HOA, housing association, homeowners association, can it prevent someone from installing solar in Tennessee?
The answer is yes. The longer answer is there's some gray area on solar access laws and what's there. Yes, and that's part of my other hat with the Tennessee Solar Industry Association, of trying to work through that and saying that it's like the satellite dishes. You have the right to have something other than just the cable lines coming to your house. Well, you have the right to have solar energy as well. So will we get everything we want? No, but what we can do today and what normally is acceptable is looking at, maybe not the front of the house, but the back of the house, or other options like a pergola or something that is not, what the HOA would term, excluded in the bylaws. So, but again, lots of ways to address that. But right now, the answer is most likely yes, they can, but there are options around.
So this is a little bit more technical question, and this one is, the question is regarding AC units, the HVAC for the house. And the question that person asking this question says, since an HVAC has such a high peak load when it starts up, can a single Tesla battery provide that energy if there's a power outage? Like the average 5-ton.
On the system. And I hate saying it depends, but it depends. However, we can calculate that inrush current up front. And a lot of what we do on these systems is do soft starts if they don't already have them. But if we know what the system is, we know what the capabilities of the solar and storage system are, we can do those calculations to ensure that yes, it'll be able to pick up that load, or that it won't. And maybe we need to either beef up the system or look at segregating that from the critical loads.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so many good questions here. And Russell is asking if it is beneficial to add insulation to the attic. And I'm not sure if he's wondering about in combination with solar or as a way to offset the need for solar. But what are your views on insulation and other home improvements?
No, absolutely. So to take that question two different ways. One, reducing your energy usage is always the best bang for the buck. So, if you've got, just a wildly inefficient insulation in the attic or something else like that, that is going to be your best first dollar energy savings there. Once you have that, and once you've basically got that, that's when you can start looking at, okay, what else can I do with lighting, with solar and storage? And the other aspect of that with solar and storage is if I put solar panels on my southern facing roof, the one that gets the most sun, will it defray some of that cost? Yeah, because now the solar panels are taking the brunt of the heat that's coming from the sun, and there's a gap behind the solar panels between them and the roof that creates some insulation there. So you actually increase the insulation on that piece of the house that gets the most sunlight, because that's where you want the solar panels generally.
Sort of duplicative benefits there.
Yep.
And this is a question we hear a lot is how long does it take the average home to recoup their investment, if you will? If someone's interested in the payback on solar panels, will they make that money back, or how long will it take if we're talking the average home? I know it depends on how many panels they install, but yeah, what's your general perception on that or perspective?
Increase. Nope, I'm back. Am I still there, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry for the disconnect here. Some internet.
Yeah, I think I don't see my video anymore, but so the solar and storage, there's two different sides to that system, and the storage is more the insurance. And then if you take the concept of, well, I've put this investment in my house, what is it going to do for my home's value? Is it going to be less than zero? Is it going to be less valuable? Well, no. Is it going to be the full cost of the system I installed? Probably not. Is it somewhere in between in that wide gap? Yes. So thinking about it from the broader goals of what we are trying to achieve and what the opportunities are, I think it's more to the question of what that looks like. So does it have a great just on its own simple payback? No. And there's a lot of people that'll tell you, yes, it'll eliminate your electric bill, or it's got like a 6-year payback. Let's do the math, look at how the calculations are done. But if you look at the broader concept of what you're trying to achieve, that's really what we're looking for and what we try to educate our customers and clients and the overall industry.
Great, thank you. In the case I lose my internet signal again, I want to thank everybody we'll go ahead and do another question here. But in case we lose our signal, I want to say thank you for everyone who attended today and is still here actively participating in our wonderful conversation with Chris with LightWave Solar. Please make sure you contact LightWave Solar if you really want to dive into the technicalities. It's best to, I would assume, to go ahead and schedule a consultation for your specific circumstances. Also, you will receive a follow-up email from Tennessee Environmental Council with the link to the recording from this presentation, this webinar today, and information on how you can support Tennessee Environmental Council too. We have a Kroger Rewards Challenge this summer. If you shop at Kroger and use your Kroger Rewards number or card, you can actually support Tennessee Environmental Council at no cost to yourself. And if you earmark Tennessee Environmental Council to receive your community rewards points, you're eligible to win a $50 gift card from Tennessee Environmental Council. A Kroger gift card is our summer challenge. So pay attention to your email, and we will send that out to you within the next 24 hours. So you can also watch the recording of this and participate in that Kroger Rewards Challenge. So in case, and I think we have time for, looks like maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Let me go ahead and here, check out one of the more recent questions we've gotten. Someone has a 2-year-old net meter system, a 3.6 kilowatt system on FLEC, which I'm not sure what that acronym stands for, but he's asking, how does he add storage to an existing net metered system? Is that possible?
So No, it's a great question. However, the way the old program worked, we just can't add storage to it. So, but there's two things we can do. One, we can add more solar to it. So that system existing is what's called a buy all sell. So there's a meter, a generation meter, right out of that inverter that's measuring how much solar is generated and being sold back to utility, regardless of how much you're using. So what we can do is say, well, we're going to leave that one alone and put another behind the meter solar and storage system in to do the bill reduction. So you'll still get your same credit on one side, but you're going to reduce your demand on the other side. One way to do it. Another way to do it would be to just move that system or move out of that system and just move to a solar and storage system. We don't normally recommend doing that. We have done it a few times. Normally we recommend going ahead and doing the earlier example. The last option is, well, I'd really like these, this solar available in an outage that's there. And we can do that with switching and get around that. But it's a complicated system. And the thing I hate to do is add more chances for failure in a system that's fairly reliable. So the more components, the more switches we add in order to get that solar to your batteries in the case of an outage can actually reduce reliability, and that's not what we want to do. But possible, again, we've done it before in different cases, but not normally what we focus on.
Thank you. That's great. Let's see. Let's see. I think we have time for one more question here. And there's so many questions, it's kind of hard to pick because these are really good questions. And I'm going to say again, if your question hasn't been answered today, make sure you make a note of the phone number on here, the LightWave Solar info and the website, and make sure you follow up because a lot of these questions are best answered on a case-by-case basis, depending on your home's unique circumstances. And this is an important one. Like, what are the overall environmental effects on natural resources? Because we hear this as the skeptics of solar panels or solar energy say, well, it's just as damaging to the environment as coal extraction or oil or nuclear. So what's the truth about that, Chris? Is it more environmentally beneficial in the long run?
No, that is a great question. I think a good one to kind of cap it off is that on the solar panel side, the industry has gotten much better and crazy good about getting the overall carbon intensity of manufacturing a solar panel, like the one behind me there. And generally the payback is less than 2 years for carbon, saying that in the first 1.5 to 2 years of that solar panel's usage, it has removed the carbon that it took to manufacture it. And again, a lot of different ways you can do the calculation and what's there. The other piece of it gets to, okay, what happens in 25 or 30 years? What are we going to do with all these solar panels? There's no good recycling yet. And the struggle there is the chicken solar panels to recycle yet. So it's tough to build an industry around recycling something that we don't have a lot of yet. So yes, is it potentially a problem? Absolutely. But are there a lot of potential solutions to get there? Absolutely, there are, especially when it comes to maybe in 10, 15, 20 years, repowering some of these arrays with more efficient panels. Will there be the outlets there? I can't say that definitively, yes, 100% it's going to be there, but man, I'm really confident that the industry and us as society will figure out how best to recycle these. On the battery side, are we there yet? Is the intensity of mining, some of these batteries are nickel, manganese, cobalt. What about, the cost to extract those and that? Getting better. Again, as you look at Tesla is the leader in what they're going out with electric vehicles, and they throughout the whole value chain are working on trying to do this in a more sustainable way and try to enable this. So a lot of work is going into not just trading one carbon source for another, but to do it at a huge net benefit. So I'll just go all the way back to the beginning and say that yes, there is a lot of studies in that to say that this is better than in a better offset, but two, that the next 3 to 4 years is an exciting time to get in. Will things be dramatically different in 5 years? I think there will be a lot of options. Is it a really good kind of point to get into now? Obviously, we think so, and that's why almost 100% of what we do includes solar plus storage. And if you look at the LightWave logo, the little curve here at the bottom is all about representing our path to zero carbon. That is our belief as a company in getting to a zero carbon society, fueled by the dot of the I, which is the sun. And it's core to our mission, core to who we are, and how we view things, and take it very seriously when we select products in order to achieve that. So.
Excellent information. Thank you for the inspiration, Chris. Thank you all who attended today, and pay attention to your email for a follow-up. And we will go ahead and close our webinar for the day. And you all enjoy the rest of your day, and go solar. Take it seriously, give it some thought, and reach out to LightWave Solar.
Thank you, and support Tennessee Environmental Council. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.